Here we go. We are live. Matt Hogan, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Doing fantastic. Happy to be here.
Yeah, the Tuesday after a long weekend, we're remembering what our jobs are, and boom, we're thrown right back into it.
Oh my gosh, yes, back into the storm.
Well, I'm excited for the conversation, Matt. We are going to be talking a lot today about a topic that is near and dear to both of our hearts, and it is what you see on the screen here. It is how can we go from, hey, AI is a cool toy to, wow, we're really using AI to great effect inside our content and content creation, content marketing strategy. And I can't think of a better person for the job than you, Matt. We spoke a couple weeks back, and I was blown away with not just how you think about things, but the output that you're getting from your team. And we'll get into that in a moment. But first, tell people about yourself. Who are you, Matt? And what does HG Insights do?
Awesome. Yeah, well, first, thank you for the opportunity to share the story and join the platform. And second, thank you to those that are joining live. That's awesome. Starting your week strong. To introduce myself, I'm Matt Hogan. I'm the VP of Marketing at HG Insights. HG Insights provides what we call revenue growth intelligence, which is really interesting intel on how companies use technology, what they spend on it, and their intent. So we help sales and marketing teams with their targeting and competitive analysis. Personally, I have been part of and in this sort of data business for a decade now, which is crazy to think. Going through a couple companies, and content marketing is my passion. I started out at a content marketing agency long even before that, and that's always stuck with me. And I'm excited to share why Copy.ai resonates so much because I have tried to do everything on my own before, and this has been an absolute game changer. So we'll get into those details.
Well, one thing you said to me, Matt, when last we spoke that I just haven't been able to get out of my head was you said our team of two is operating like a team of 20. And I was like, man, like that is the gold here. And some people hear that and they're like, oh, AI is taking jobs. Like, not quite. AI is making more possible for high leverage people so that
Yeah.
your team can be more productive, so you can support more verticals, more industries, more personas, more deliverables for the sales team, like all the things we wish we had time for that we can't afford to have a team of 20. Now we can do with a team of two. It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, it is amazing. And to think, over the arc of, probably both our careers, there was, when once really Upwork took off, it made it really easy to go get contractors and lower cost writers, but you saw this massive disparity in quality.
Yeah.
So there was a path to scaling your team, but let's say huge quality issue and then cost. And so what we've tried to do is kind of roll that thinking forward and go, okay, now we can leverage this technology. Yeah, so 2 to 20, and honestly, coming out of SKO last week, it might need to be 200.
200.
Yeah, we'll see. We got big goals here.
It has to be that because of everything HG is trying to make happen. So we'll get into that in a moment, like talking about mindset and things like that. I think it dovetails really nicely from this big insight. I have a version of this conversation pretty frequently with CMOs, with CROs, with operations folks, and with all folks across the go-to-market engine. And I want to share kind of some of the insights from those conversations. And then we're going to talk about specifically your use case, Matt, and what you're making happen at HG. And then we'll talk about like how do you make this happen? What's the mindset change that you need to have ahead of the process change that you need to have, which dovetails into what you call the content flywheel? And then we're going to bring some of this to life in a little bit of a live demo here so you can see how this thinking, this process comes to life inside of a purpose-built solution like Copy.ai. So first, what is the main problem that we're hearing so much in the industry? It's similar to what you just said, Matt. Like, our team has big plans. There is so much to do, so many tasks, to-dos, jobs to be done. We have ambitions as a company that need to be fulfilled by the go-to-market team and the marketing team in this case. The problem is there's just not enough time in the day to do it. We have all these different tools. We have all these manual processes. We have contractors, freelancers, writers, all this disconnected data. Ultimately, we can't get done as we want to for as little as we have to spend on it. And this is a pretty expensive operation. And so the solution, hopefully, is a correct injection of AI across the go-to-market engine. a single platform that can unify tooling, that can streamline, if not outright automate, a lot of these manual processes, that can take data from various systems, structured data, unstructured data, put it together into meaningful outputs that allow your team to operate with high velocity. And that's how you go from having a team of 2 to operating like a team of 20 to potentially being able to operate like a team of 200. And so the goal here, and what Matt and I are going to talk a lot about today, is you have best practices across the go-to-market engine. Think about your marketing playbook, whether it's content marketing or demand generation or account-based marketing or your SDR playbook, your sales playbook. All those pages in those playbooks, those are processes. And each of those processes lends themselves to codification with AI. Again, not outright automation. We're not saying that AI can do everything that a content marketing person can do. But what we're saying is we can streamline a lot of those processes by codifying those best practices. And if you have this mindset, if you really think about the pages in your playbook across the revenue lifecycle, you can make AI can make a huge impact in the way you create demand, the way you convert that demand into pipeline, which is a lot of what we're talking about today, top of funnel, middle funnel type stuff. But also, how do you run your deals? How do you run your customer accounts? How do you think about expansion, upsell, renewal, and how and where can we infuse AI into that entire strategy? That is a lot of what we're talking about today. And let's start with some of the mindset stuff, Matt. Like, this doesn't just happen. You can't just say, oh, our CEO said we need to use AI and we're going to snap our fingers and it's going to happen. So how did you actually get your team bought in that AI was going to be helpful to them and not a hindrance or a threat to them?
Yeah, that's really where it starts, right? Is thinking about how do you drive adoption in the company. And I'm sure a lot of folks on here are getting the mission from executives. We need to be more AI driven. And content is, I think, an easy place to go. But what I learned is easy is a bit of a trap. And I'm not to say using your product copy isn't easy, but when right now everybody's playing with Chat GPT or Claude, and you're getting used to these fast responses. And what the reality is we had to kind of step back and really, and you talked about it, right? Codifying the process, right? Really think about that process. And so that process, to start was bringing the team in and going, okay, this is going to be a paradigm shift for your career. This isn't going to happen overnight. You're not just going to have content right now. You really got to recognize this is going to be monumental. It's going to take time to learn. And I think back to when, it's like when Marketo hit the market, or when things like Outreach and SalesLoft hit the market. Those were paradigm shifts for the role of kind of marketing and SDR. And if you didn't learn the fundamentals, you quickly fall apart. And so, the process there was, number one is first thing I started a Slack channel, just pushing AI content, self-educate. You really need to learn. Like, you've got to devote to learning, not necessarily learning, okay, how the models work and the compute and things like that, but opening your mind to the creative ways you can leverage AI. And I'm sure we'll get into the actual practice of what we did with Copy.
We'll get there in a moment. And I think you're exactly right, Matt. And this is something that I've seen a lot of marketing people, but generally speaking, everybody who's trying to use AI have fallen victim to this sort of fallacy of simplicity, where you're exactly right. CEO says we need an AI strategy, and therefore our AI strategy is everybody gets an license to ChatGPT. Like, okay, that's a pretty good start. But then actually getting value out of ChatGPT is hard, because you have to actually put in the time, energy, effort to learn how to manipulate the chat interface. And so what a lot of people's experience is, they go and land on ChatGPT and they say, write me a blog post about this topic. And the blog post sucks because they didn't provide instructions or content or their best practices. And they're like, AI, that'll never work. But if you treat AI the same way that you would treat, let's say, an intern or a junior level content marketer on how to write a great blog post, now you really have to think about, what are the steps that you take to create a great blog post, to take a sales transcript and turn it into middle of the funnel, how-to use case oriented content. Like, you don't just do that by snapping your fingers. You have a process. And I think a lot of what, especially content marketing, what the advice that I would give to them is, yes, there is artistry. Yes, there is usefulness in the copywriting, and there is some magic in the way that the words come together and flow and all the rest. But there's also process baked in. And there are step by step by step things that you do. You maybe don't think about it that way, but you have to start thinking about it that way, because that's what allows you to outsource some of that busy work to something like an AI.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the process is amazing. And I remember sitting in a talk with Noah Breyer. He was a founder of Percolate, and he's now doing some more AI things. And he talked about how AI truly challenges your intuition. And so if you think about a content marketer, do you go hire somebody who's really talented? Their intuition on how to create a good blog post or create a good article is predicated on their experience. So in a way, they have this tribal knowledge, like, okay, what goes into a really good blog post?
Right.
And they can do it, they can rinse and repeat. In a way, it's their art. Well, what's interesting here is we're going to extract that art. And it's almost like this maturity curve. Okay, we start using it and everyone's really excited, and then it dips down, and it's that experience you just described. Okay, you get the blog post, like, wait, this isn't what I wanted. And so what we did is we just stepped back, whiteboard, what is that process? What is a good blog post, right? And it's title, subheader, intro, hook, right? You like break it down to the jobs to be done of an article, and that helps you think through the components that you want. And that's where doing that has allowed us to go through the process of these workflows and then go, okay, that part doesn't look right. We're not just going to throw out the whole thing. Like, and you can't change it with a chat GPT, but with Copy.ai, we can go, okay, let's dissect this. Let's go back into the workflow. Let's adjust what we asked and run it again, right? So you can start honing it to your need. And the only way you can do that is by challenging your intuition about writing and by thinking through that process. And that goes to why I think it's a paradigm shift, because if you can break down your work in that way, that's just going to accelerate. And we're thinking about it. Okay, typical content, blog posts, landing page, customer tutorials, customer case studies. We're now taking, webinars, any sort of talks we had, extracting the insights, and then a use case you talked about a couple of weeks ago that took off last week at our SKO is going, okay, account research.
Yeah.
How do we take this huge process that our field team is kind of intimidated right now? We're going, oh my gosh, I got to go put account plans for 50 accounts. They could go chat GPT it, or we can go, you know what are the 10 things you want out of that, right? So challenging that intuition and then revisiting the process and then running it through.
It's exactly right. And we have actually a little free tool for account planning. If you're curious, I just shared it in the chat, so you can see like some of the approach that we have to helping with that account planning process. I wasn't planning on doing this so early, but I want to show how this mindset actually manifests in a UI, Matt, because I think seeing the UI will help. And then we'll get into the way that HG has brought some of these things to life. So what I'm showing right now, and Matt and I have been using this word quite a bit in our conversation so far, and that word is workflows. And what I'm showing here is a workflow that codifies a process to take a transcript from a sales conversation, a demo-oriented conversation, and turn it into how-to use case-oriented content. So in this case, the input for the workflow is that transcript that we have, and then just a little bit more about your company. If there's context you want to share, value props you want to share, whatever it may be, you can use, those are the inputs for this workflow. From there, the steps that you see in this workflow are the codification of how we would train a agency to write an article, or train a junior level copywriter, or the best practices we have to understand what is the main problem being presented in the transcript. What are the status quo solutions to solving that problem? This is a middle bottom of funnel piece of content. So we want to brainstorm what other types of keywords should we be incorporating into this article to help with rankability. And then to the point that you were just making, Matt, what is the brief that we want to follow? We need a title, we need an intro, we need to highlight the problem, we need to talk about these things. And then let's turn it into a piece of long form content that's about 3,000 words and does a handful of other things. And so what you get from this is you can, by inputting the transcript, you can get, I'm sorry, I don't have a version of it. By inputting the transcript, you get a long form article that maybe is not a perfect final draft. But the goal here and kind of the first stage of your AI journey is compress the time to a first draft that is really serviceable. Like if you get an 80% output from this workflow, how much time does that save you? Probably a couple hours minimum. And then you can work on going from 80 to 90 and 90, maybe not ever to 100, but you can increase the quality, as Matt said, by saying, oh, you know what? We didn't get this part of the workflow exactly right. We need to give better instructions about how we can extract the problem from this. And we can iterate on this workflow in a stepwise way to improve the outputs that we can generate. So I wanted to share this with everybody so you can start to visualize a little bit more of how to think about the steps in a workflow. And I know that Lisa has something that she can share where you can actually put this workflow to work right now and kind of see a real output from it based on one of the sales calls that you have had. So forgive the aside there, Matt, but I just wanted to bring that to life. Let's talk about, well, first I should say, any commentary on any of that so far?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that's interesting with that is, some of you on this call or a webinar who might be listening, you're the champion. Okay. You got to go in and learn this. But if you run a team like I do, right? I have 2 content writers, but I have my whole team. I got my enablement team on there, my growth marketing team, SDR leaders, AE leaders. So about 10 people.
Yeah.
So you think about how do you connect your personal devotion to learning this to getting them up to speed. Because there's that, this is a skill set that they have to develop. And so one of the things that I keep stressing is when you go use that workflow, go through the workflow, all those steps to try to understand it, and think about what you can create that's a single, right? If to use a baseball term, it's easy, it's a layup. Do that and get into that practitioner and learning mindset, run it through and start to learn where you can tweak things. The second part of that is think about your time investment on doing this before you use AI. So whatever that action is, let's say it's 20 hours. If you go do this once, it might take you 20 hours.
Right.
But I guarantee if you devote to it, it's going to go down really fast. And that's what we've seen is we've taken the time to learn it and now it snowballs. So now what was 20 hours is like 3 hours of human time. And that's possible if you devote to learning this. And I don't want that to be interpreted of, oh my gosh, now I got to go learn a new tool. What you're learning isn't necessarily Copy.ai. What you're learning is AI, how to really think about this. And if you believe it is the future, which I hope you do, this is a cheat code to learning that system and then getting results.
It's an interest. I totally agree. And the parallel that I draw, Matt, is training a team of people. So I imagine many folks on this call have at some point in your career trained somebody to do something. And certainly I did early in my career. And this is more of an SDR, sales development, and account planning type example that I'm giving. But the parallel, I think, is there where the first person or two that I hired and onboarded, I was hands-on with them and I sat with them and I trained them where to click, what to do, all these things. I sat down with them and I trained them that way. And then there were 6 or 8 people on the team. And I was like, there's no way I can do this for every single person we hire moving forward. And so I had to go through the painful process of documentation and writing down all of the things that you do when you're researching an account, researching a person, writing a great cold email, all the things that go into an outbound process. And that time investment of documentation and writing down all the different pathways for getting work done was huge. It's so worth it. I can't even tell you, because we ended up scaling that team to 70 or 80 people. And it was like, there's no way we could have scaled as quickly as we did without those processes documented. It's the same thing here. Like putting in the time upfront to document how great work gets done, and then training or teaching the AI how to leverage and use those best practices. That is a time investment worth having, because what we do for that workflow that I just showed, and Lisa shared it in the chat as well if you want to use it. Now that we have this workflow created, that takes a transcript and turns it into a middle of funnel piece of content, it's automatically triggered to run against every single sales call that we have. So every time a solutions engineer is presenting something, we get a high quality piece of content as a result. Now, do we publish every single piece of that content? We do not. But we have this content library available to us that we can go and fulfill our content calendar so much easier than we ever could have before. And it's a result of that kind of systems level thinking. So let's dive
Yeah.
now into the use cases for you, Matt. You've talked a lot about this content scaling. You've talked about, we're going to get into your content flywheel example here in a moment, but what are the main use cases that you have right now for AI and content marketing?
Yeah. So we're looking at it, from a full funnel standpoint. So top of funnel, how can we leverage this to accelerate just fundamental content creation? So blog posts are a great example. And the things that we're doing is we're taking a lot of our thought leadership video content or audio content and turning that into written. And even if you're just using it to convert that to a thoughtful article for internal education, we found a ton of value. The second thing we're doing is, so our content strategy and our business, we collect data on how companies use technology. So we have this amazing data set that allows us to understand, the adoption of AI or the spend on infrastructure by market, by country. And so the bulk of our content is around these data-driven stories. And we're in the process of actually recreating our market report process in Copy.ai. So what we found is it's so research heavy that's taking away the research part. So if we can shrink the research part, now we're filling in our data part, we're cutting down that time considerably. So that's top of funnel. Now moving down with our product marketing team, we have a huge initiative to do exactly what you described, which is internal processes. But part of that is internal education on use cases for our company. Mm-hmm. So, and it starts internal. So one of our core use cases is like strategic planning. So how to conduct TAM Samsung, how to do your ideal customer profile. And I'll show in the content flywheel an example, but we've got SMEs internally that really understand the best practice. And so they're spending their time recording content, writing content, more for an internal use case. But then my product marketer, honestly, it's like cheating. We just take that, we put in Copy.ai, and we can now have middle and bottom funnel assets that speak to it. And it's amazing. Like we're working on an ebook for TAM Samsung best practices. So we can invest less than the original time to write it because of this product, but then we can go, hey, what's TAM Samsung best practice for a CIO? Why the CIO should be involved? What's the CFO's role, right? You can start to do this divisible content streams coming out of these assets. And that's a bit of like you have to open your mind to the possibilities and how you can start to extract things and mold them. And you can get so much great things out of it.
Opening
your
content.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge part of it, Matt, because I think what a lot of people have the light bulb hasn't exactly gone off on what is now possible that was just never possible before. So the way that I try and bring this to life for people, and I love that you just brought up this example, is if you think about this go-to-market matrix that you have, where you have all of the personas that you sell to, you have all the industries that you sell to, you have all the products that you sell, and you have all the segments that you sell to, SMB, mid-market, enterprise, et cetera. Like that multi-dimensional matrix is thousands of cells. And creating all the bespoke content for every single one of those cells used to be impossible. But now with the right structure, and not overnight, but with the right structure, with the right mindset, with the right engineering, you can create that piece of content for the CIO, CFO, CRO, CMO, and for any industry that you want. And you can do that in a way that is much more scalable. Now, it requires thinking from your team, from the product marketing team, to have the right value props for those personas, from somebody on the team to have the right value props for different industries, the content team's best practices on how to create relevant content. Like this stuff does not just happen, but it definitely is so much more possible than it ever has been before. And this is the way that your team is, it sounds like, starting to scale themselves.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I think that's where, the systems thinking, and also just strategic thinking, right? How do we go tackle that matrix? And I think before this, that was incredibly intimidating. And I could tell you, just going through SKO, right? There's a lot of positive energy. It's like, okay, we got to do this for that, this for that. Normally, as content marketers, you leave that week going, oh my gosh, we got a big mountain to climb.
Yeah.
But now it's going, okay, you know what? As long as we have our central artifact solid, so my recommendation is have your central message map, your value propositions organized, and then your SME. Once you have those two, combining and scaling that into any direction is honestly, it's exponentially easier now.
100%. And so we're talking a lot about, like 201, 301 type use cases. Let's maybe reverse the hands of time a little bit, Matt, and go back to where you got started, because Shannon in the chat asked, how long does it take to achieve this? How long does it take to take this vision and make it a reality? Shannon even said she's got to give a deadline to her CMO. She's a team of one. So how long did it take you to start getting real value from this AI deployment?
Oh, you can get value right away. I mean, especially as a team of one, because what you just need to do is invest the time, right? Go listen to all of Kyle's YouTubes, go listen to the podcasts, particularly YouTubes, because you can see this workflows. Yeah. As you hear other people talk about it, it's going to open your mind how to use it. But then the second thing is, don't think about advanced use cases. Just try to do a blog post, right? Just try to do the basic things first and get momentum and confidence. Then you'll roll that into the next ones. And I just think a general challenge in marketers in this environment, being on LinkedIn, is you just see all these posts. You're like, oh my gosh, that sounds really cool. That's complicated. And you have to be pragmatic about what moves the needle for your business. And something I'm always emphasizing, internally, is we have to get our fundamentals right first.
Yes.
So nail your fundamentals. Can you, if you look at your marketing strategy, do you have thought leadership content on the core use cases and value proposition your business provides? If you don't, that's a great level one use case. Like, have your CEO on his or her morning walk, record an audio note and have them Slack that to you, and you have your article.
And so this is such good advice, Matt. And I'll say, Lisa put a little poll question in the polls section on the right. If you want a custom demo of Copy.ai and you want to see a deeper dive into what's possible, just let us know. We're happy to help there. But Matt, you're hitting the nail on the head here about where to get started. There is a treasure trove of content buried in conversations, whether those are sales call conversations or they're recordings from webinars like this one, or they're just interviews that your CEO has already done, or voice memos you can have them create. Like, their thinking and the thinking of subject matter experts and thought leaders, this is, I believe, the lowest hanging fruit for content creation. And the reason I say this is because when you run the workflows that takes the sales call transcript and turns it into a blog post, when you run that workflow that gets from A to Z, what you're doing is you're having the AI synthesize the thinking of a subject matter expert. You're not necessarily asking the AI to create new content from whole cloth. And what that means is you're not going to get super generic thoughts from the AI. You're going to get thoughts from the subject matter expert that are just synthesized into the written form by the AI. And that's a huge difference. It's way easier to go from that fully fleshed out transcript to a polished piece of content than it is to go from like a single SEO keyword to a polished piece of content, because there's just much more heavy lifting you have to do from a process standpoint there.
Yeah. I mean, the combination of audio to article is amazing. So I do a lot of endurance sports. So I spent my mornings or very early, running, paddling, whatever it is. And I use voice notes. There's tons of apps. And that's when my brain gets going. And I'll be running, holding my phone or the mic close, recording it.
Yeah.
And then I have this library of thoughts. I just copy the transcript, and put it in Copy.ai. And those are ways to, again, it's just to get moving.
Yeah.
And the other part is maybe don't worry about the final product. Like just try creating these things. And since you're a team of one, I mean, honestly, just carve out a Friday afternoon and just try these things, because you'll start to reach velocity faster than you think.
I totally agree. And Matt, I knew that we would get along. I knew we were cut from a similar cloth. I didn't know we were cut from the exact same cloth, because I literally do that same thing. I'm out on a run or whatever, and I have an idea for a LinkedIn post. I just pop open the voice memo app and I record it, and then I throw that recording into a workflow that turns it into a LinkedIn post. And you're like, it's so easy to do. So like these ideas can come from anywhere. Just like get your thinking down and record it, and that just unlocks so much velocity for you. So thank you, Matt, for entertaining that little pump up to Shannon. Do you want to talk about any of the ways that you're using transcripts from your subject matter experts, or any other workflows you want to discuss before we get to the content flywheel?
Yeah, there's two others. So we are taking right now we're investing in taking all of the thought leadership content the company has produced. So from CAB meetings to customer events to webinars, extracting those. Like Friday, I literally took like 6 hours of video in 30 minutes and turned those into transcripts and then into outlines and Copy.ai. And I don't even know what I'm going to do with it yet.
Yeah.
What we're trying to do is just get this stuff written. We're going to, as a team, we're going to review it and go, you know what? That's a great point. Let's turn that into an article. So that's one thing we're doing. Then the other is coming at SKO. Okay, we have a big go-to-market strategy shift. We're changing where we're selling. We're also changing the incentive structures around the business and really emphasizing account planning.
Yes.
And so what I'm doing right now is I'm pushing the sales team to do that process thinking of going, what goes into a really good account plan? We've already run through about a dozen in Copy.ai's account research workflow and go, okay, here's the baseline. Here's what we can do right now, but we can customize this. Like what are the other questions you want to ask? We've got we now have all our messaging in there. How do you want to turn this into value props or different sales angles? So that's the latest use case that we will be following through on over the next 2 weeks.
I love that, man. And I want to this is such an important part of go to market, because a lot of times, and I think unfortunately over the last 10 or 15 years, we've gotten more and more specialized, which means we've gotten more and more siloed. And oftentimes, in my experience, the content marketing team and the outbound SDR team are just rarely on the same page or singing from the same song sheet, complementing each other with what they're doing. But the interesting thing here, I'm just going to share an example of what an account plan looks like. This is a random example that somebody created using that free tool that we shared in the chat earlier. I can share it again real quick so you have it. But this is a version of an account plan that gets created. And what Matt just mentioned is it's not just the research into this company, HNI Healthcare, and what they do and industry trends. The cool thing is, what are the sales angles that we could pursue based on what's happening inside of this account? So now we have an understanding of where this company is focusing their time, energy, effort, resources, and all the rest. And this becomes a suggestion for the type of content that you could create. So now we know that to effectively penetrate this account, we need to speak to this use case, data-driven insights for security. Well, what kind of content do we have on this topic? And if you already have the workflow built that can write a great blog post about this, or can write a great use case content, or you can write a great customer story, it becomes much easier to create bespoke custom content for one or even all of these sales angles that exist across your individual accounts and across all of the accounts that you care about. So you can start to really unify the way that your outbound channel is working in concert with your content marketing channel. And then outbound starts to become more of a exercise in content distribution, getting the right content in front of the right people at the right time, adding value, educating. You can create a really useful buyer experience that's content led. And I love the way that you're thinking about combining these universes, Matt.
Yeah. In fact, the last meeting last week, we had all the sales leaders, SDR leader, ops, and the whole marketing team. And I just wrote on the whiteboard, we're content-led strategy.
Love that.
That is us. And you're bringing that up reminded me, one awesome insight we found is we ran it through and we saw one company in their earnings report said they are emphasizing the healthcare and life sciences industry this year. So what that means now, the SDR goes and creates a custom tour of our product emphasizing that industry, going, hey, here's the TAM in healthcare. And then what we're doing in marketing is we're creating a market report for healthcare at a high level. So what are the top security tools adopted in this industry? And that combined content-led approach, one is that's true alignment right there.
Yes.
But that's where we're headed.
I love that, Matt. And maybe that's a good segue into kind of your concept of the content flywheel. And we talked a little bit about this earlier and how you're thinking about bringing this type of content to life. But the cool thing, and maybe not pictured here, is where the insights come from for content. So now the interesting thing is like you have your own marketing strategy, you have your company strategy, and you have the insights coming from account plans that maybe you had not thought of prioritizing that can kick off this flywheel. So talk to us about what are we looking at here and how are you thinking about bringing this flywheel to life using AI?
So this is something I'm really passionate about. And to be honest, I've been hesitant to share because I think this is like an absolute game changer for the market. And, when I think about the future of content marketers and marketers, as we progress in our careers, you have to have this in your resume. You have to be thinking about Copy.ai and how to leverage AI to scale content. And the reason why is this flywheel concept. So it starts at the top with a video. So imagine this, all you do, let's say Kyle and I work together and we go every day at 10 a.m., we're going to get on video. We're going to record a high quality video with the lights, with the mics. And now we have a conversation. That asset can be a video asset. It could go on YouTube, it could go wherever it is. That asset can be turned into a podcast easily. Then it can be turned into a short form video easily, right? There's amazing video tools out there that can do that. And I'm doing it. I have very little experience and the quality is amazing. So one artifact video, you now have audio, you now have short form, and then you have the transcript. And now you're jumping into Copy.ai's world is everything else that comes out of that is piece of cake. Okay. So all you did was invest an hour of time and you can do all of this, right? If you do that on a regular basis. So again, it's changing how you think about going after content. And what I really pushing for is going, okay, as we map out our 2025 schedule and we want to do this TAM Samsung ebook. Okay, that's what we're doing this quarter. We need to sit down, record a video. We need the SMEs and we need to formalize it because I want an asset for every medium. And marketing is obviously omni-channel, it's everywhere. And whether it's good or not, we have to be everywhere. And now it's honestly easier than it's ever been. And it's a flywheel because it's only going to get easier. One thing that I got pushback internally from, or a lot of questions was, well, how are you sure everybody's content isn't going to look the same?
Right.
And you know what? If you use ChatGPT, there's a good chance it does.
Yeah.
But if you lean on your authenticity through the recordings and through whether it's video, audio, you can start anywhere. It's going to be completely unique to you. So to me, I think that's an objection that's not an issue.
I totally agree. Like part of the authenticity comes from the thought leadership that's informing the videos that you're recording, the podcast that you're recording. The other part of it comes from your best practices for any of the deliverables that you see here. Like the way that you author blog posts, you have your own approach to that. You have your own approach to what a great intro is and what a good outline looks like. And I know that sounds like a little bit, or maybe sounds a little silly to some, but it really is true. Like the way that you write is different from the way other companies write. Your brand voice, your messaging guidelines, your content briefs, the way you do thought leadership. So you get authenticity both from what the inputs are to the workflows. In this case, it's a transcript. And you get authenticity and differentiation in your best practices for authoring high quality content. So I love this approach, Matt, and I hope that you're giving this away to people. So if you screenshot nothing else from this session. I hope that you screenshot this and you start to think about how can we bring this flywheel to life for ourselves, and how can we start to remove a lot of the friction that exists in our process and bring a lot of this to life.
Yeah. Yeah. And that just made me think like, you gotta, you in this, when you whiteboard, when does the fun happen? When are the good thoughts flowing?
Right.
Right. We talked about running or working out, right? Record the thoughts, but also conversations, right? Record those, right? Get that going. Because the last thing, I mean, you talked about the SEO one, like the old way was, okay, we want to rank for this keyboard or this keyword. And then you go and you're looking at your blank dot going, okay,
Right. How?
what do I do?
Yeah.
Right. And it would be better to go, okay, we want to rank for this keyword. Who in this company knows something about this? Let's go record the Zoom with them. Let's get their thoughts. And now I'm off and running. Like I'm so much farther down the line than before.
Exactly. Exactly. Man, we've hit on so many different things, Matt, and I think we've covered it all, from how to think about things like that 0 to 1 type thinking. And I love the advice that you gave to Shannon. And now you've gone, the 1 to 10 phase, and now you're going 10 to 100. And this is really interesting to see how you start to bring this to life. Any closing thoughts for the audience? Any words of advice that you have as we come to a close here?
Yeah, I mean, my biggest advice is what I tell my team, that this is transformational for your career.
Yeah.
Sure, it can be transformational for your business, but this is a practice. If you personally invest, and I mean, listen to the podcast on your own time, watch the videos, don't necessarily look at it as work. Like this is going to be transformational. So I think about, as the next few years, hiring folks. I want if I'm going to hire another content marketer in particular, I want them to come to me and go, you know what? You don't need to hire more people. I'm not coming in with expectations because I know how to harness this new technology and I can produce like 10, like 20, and I'll show you why. Right. To me, that's where it's going. And so my advice is really to dig in at both how to use Copy AI in these workflows, but also just the whole topic, right? Find the thought leaders, learn how they're adopting it, follow them, and just be naturally curious, because it's here to stay, and it's going to be a differentiation factor for you throughout your career.
Can't say it any better than that, Matt. So I just dropped your LinkedIn in the chat. If you want to, I highly recommend you connect with Matt. He's a great thinker on this topic. Check out HG Insights and specifically look at the content that they're producing. And I have a hunch you're going to start to see pretty high velocity of content, even higher velocity of content. Anything else, Matt, that people should or could do to learn more about you or learn more about HG?
Yeah, please reach out on LinkedIn, follow on LinkedIn. You'll see as I post about HG, and hopefully, we share something that could create value for your business.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for the time today, my friend. Always a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Likewise, thanks for having me, and
Cheers. Thanks, man.
everybody else, enjoy your week. Bye.